Hello, this is Wyland with the FPV podcast, where we talk about the FPV community and everything we do with our radio-controlled machines. Before we get into the show, I just want to very quickly touch upon our Patreon giveaway. This is a monthly giveaway that we're going to be doing for our Patreon supporters. So we're going to be giving away a lot of great products. So if you're interested in supporting the podcast and being entered into the giveaway, please go over to fpvpodcast.com. That's fpvpodcast.com. Thank you so much for supporting the FPV podcast. One of the few. Hello everyone, welcome to this week's FPV podcast. We're finally making our rounds to get back some of the really important people that really predict the future of this sport. What? Come on. Okay, Elvin.
Really important people. That's right. He's right. Hey, everybody.
These are really tall tales going on here, guys.
I love it.
Here we go. Anyway, everybody, I wanted to say hello and thank you for letting me be on here again, being able to wake up this morning. And the other thing I wanted to say is Barbara Bush passed away the other day, and she is recognized as one of the best first ladies to grace across the White House. And I want to say I got a lot of respect for that lady, and she's gone. And I will repeat something that she said once. She said, all through her life, sometimes she's thought that she should go back. If she could go back in time, she could be just a little bit more kinder to other people. And I think that's very important for the rest of us. And we can move on.
There you go. Good words there. Be kind to your fellow others. Okay, all joking aside, we do like having Gregg on. He actually is a very good person when it comes to talking about drone subjects. We were talking a little bit beforehand, and we got a little too carried away. Gregg, what's going on, man?
Hey, guys, thanks for having me back. Year number 3. 3 years in a row. Woot, yes. Woot, woot.
As many of you know, Gregg is one of the OGs in drone racing. In fact, he was one of the first people that was putting on really great events early in the drone racing things. I've been up there a few times, and he really puts on good events every year. So, Gregg, what are you doing this year?
Yeah, funny you mentioned, like when we first met, it was in Champaign. I'm working on rolling out a new website with the new tool, and I was going through all my old photo albums literally a couple of hours ago, and I was getting nostalgic looking at these pictures, and I'm realizing nobody does these anymore. I mean, basically, all you see nowadays is PVC gates, flags, in an open field. And then people think that's a great experience. I'm like, we went into a shipyard. We hung a ship on its side and flew through a ship. You know, we had this massive amount of equipment that we could move stuff. Our stage was a pier that they were trying to sell. And in fact, one of the photos I posted was Johnny FPV before Johnny really could compete. I mean, He was fast, but he was inconsistent. You know, at our events, he finished no bit better than the top third. I mean, everybody beat him because he just crashed out all the time. And then, of course, he got really good and, you know, blew us all off and moved on to bigger and better things. But I was looking at all these photos, like we were going to our drone clan wars, the early days when we fly trees. We're actually going to be doing that again this year for a one-off event. I vowed to never do a 5-inch event ever again, but somebody called and reached out. Jared, you know Jared.
Yep.
Jared reached out and said, do one. I said, if you guys help and take ownership of the course, that was always my big gripe. We'll go ahead and do it, but we're going to change some of the rules. Mm-hmm. So that's not a main thing, but you know, we're going to do a 6-minute race. They're like, what? People can't even fly to tough beans.
Right.
It's 6 minutes. You got turtle mode and you got popo. So figure out a way. And there's pit stops. There's individual pit stops.
Right,
but only you could touch your own quad, right? So nobody else can get hurt. Blame it on yourself. So we'll do that. And that'll be a double header. When have you ever heard the word double header at a drone race?
Never.
I like this. Greg, I'm going to have to come up there and at least participate or help out because this sounds like a lot of fun. Something very unique and, kind of stretch the legs of all the rules that we're kind of getting used to nowadays. So he's still in the planning stages, which will bring us into our first topic of the day. So, Greg, obviously you've been closely tracking all of the drone racing stuff just like we are. So we're going to play a little game of trying to predict a few things for 2018. We've been doing that quite a bit already, mostly around the 4S, 6S, 5S train, but I'm sure Greg has other things that he wants to talk about. I'll bring up the first one. And the first one really for me is that I don't think the 6S train really has any legs because I think a lot of people are going to find out that at the end of the day, a really good 4S setup is still going to be very competitive to a 6S setup. It's all in how much you want to spend because at the end of the day, when you move up in stells and when you move up into new technology, it does cost a little bit more. And I still see people routinely run 4S and still win races pretty easily. So that's kind of my prediction is that I think 6S is there. I think it's going to be in the early stages for 2018. But I don't think anybody except for the pros, who kind of, they get stuff handed to them. So I'm sorry to say that they're allowed to break stuff pretty easily. But for the rest of the guys, I would still stick with the 4S and 5S. That's my opinion on that.
The question is, what's the future of 6S or higher, right? Well, guys, I disagree 100%.
Oh, I like this. Go.
Okay. Now let's, for 70% of the people, you're absolutely right? Now, and the only reason I say this is because, again, I'm a heli guy, right? I came from the heli world. And in the heli world, we've been through this already. There's nothing new here for us. We went from 6S to 12S. And all the arguments that we're hearing now, we've already been through. And when we upgraded them, the most important thing you're going to find is no sag towards the end of the flight. I mean, you have higher sustained current, less sag throughout your flight. And there's no arguing. You can feel it. It's the same MAHs, but amp hours, but you feel there's no sag. So it feels more powerful. It's not so much more powerful. There's just no sag. Is it more efficient? I don't know. I haven't done the test. When I was flying helis, it wasn't more efficient. It just was less sag. Now, most guys today will tell you with 6S with quads that there's a little bit more efficiency, but we've seen that a lot of the people saying that don't know what the heck they're talking about because they don't know. They can't balance out milliamp hours or amp hours. They can't do the conversion.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, I'm getting 20% longer flight times because you got 20% more capacity.
Right.
You do realize that this battery is not the same amp hours as that battery? And Bardwell did one. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. That's like battery 101. That's like the second thing you learn when you're, a guy doing RC, right?
Yeah, he tried. I mean, he did try to keep it narrowed in. He was trying to keep it narrowed in. Go ahead.
The issue has always been, well, if you have more weight, there's a trade-off, right? More weight means right. I'm not going to get as much flight time, but that's really debunking that as well. They're putting more weight with a 6S, more amp hours, but they are getting more flight time. So the trade-off is it's heavier, but there's still so much more oomph because no sag that they're not noticing it. The engines can overcompensate for it. In terms of cost issue, I don't buy that either because everybody who brings that argument up, no one's forcing you to change. But all the guys I know who are hardcore build 3 to 4 to 5 a year. So they're going to build a new one every month and a half to 2 months in season. So at that point, like the big argument, batteries are going to cost more. No, batteries cost less with 6S, not more. Yeah. We were getting ripped off, guys, on the 4S world.
Yeah, well, they're making up for the 6S sales.
Right, because when somebody brought this up, I go, well, and the first thing, Alvin, you appreciate this. I went to where I used to buy a lot of my batteries from, Heli Direct, and I looked up a Pulse. And I go, same amp hours are like 20% cheaper. Yes. 20%. And Pulse isn't the cheapest brand out there. No. So what does that tell you? And I'm like, so once again, the Heli guys have been through this 3, 4, maybe 5 years ago. And it wasn't a fad. Everybody still fly. The main limiting factor has always been the electronics, have to be able to support that current.
Yeah.
At Helis, we went through it. We were like, We had to buy new motors, which was expensive, right? And we had to change our gearing.
$150 a motor.
Right. And you got to change your gearing on not only the shaft, but also on the main gear as well. You got to change all the ratios to get it right. That was hard. We don't have to deal with that in the world of drones.
But that's also part of the thing that I say that a lot of guys are not doing. There's a lot of guys are not sitting down with a piece of paper and a calculator and figuring out the watt hours, RPM, torque, where they're using it, because that's also a very important part is where you use the torque when it's where you're applying it, the power at, whether you're applying it from 0 to 50 or from 50 to 75 or from 75 to 100, so it just depends. And a lot of guys don't understand right now. I mean, this is what's going to make and break the 4S and the 6S thing, right? The best races so far, longest races in 4S have been just shy under 3 minutes, right? And that's with the setup, right? And only 1 or 2 people are running the setup. It's already been like somebody already sat down and said, if you want to run 3-minute flight times on 4S, then you should be running this motor and that motor. But everybody else is running something else.
Well, here's a question, and this one as a racer, I don't understand this, and I've said this numerous times, that why drone pilots think that it's always more power, more thrust. And one of the guys that I talk to a lot and have a lot of respect for is Shannon Broussard. He's runs the Louisiana stuff. He's running a big endurance race this weekend, which by the time this gets aired, it'll be already done. And any racer will tell you, I mean, a real racer, not just drone racers, any racer will say, you get the equipment to match the course. You don't show up with whatever you got in your bag. And you can, but you don't have the right to complain because the world doesn't revolve around you, right? And my question always has been, why aren't you propping down, right? So if it's worth it so my theory is go to 3-minute races. You'll have to prop down, everybody. And then, and this is one of the things that, like, I know you guys have Brian Morris on. I did listen to that episode, but fundamentally, I agree at the core with a lot of things that he talks about. Is get your setup to match your needs and fly smooth, and you'll see Thayer saying the same thing. Slow everything down, slow it down. And the older guys are going to say slow it down because we can't compete on quick twitch, right? There's no way we can compete on the twitch, so we have to work smart and run a clean line, which is awesome, by the way. So I like to see that, and that's one of the reasons we were talking about the double header that's going on. I want to run 2.5-minute regular race. If you don't want to come, don't come. I'm running races for a completely different reason than I did 2 years ago. If you don't want to come, I don't care. Don't come. It's fine by me. I'm not trying to grow and be big, and I don't care. I want to move to the direction where it needs to be, and somebody needs to be, lead follower, get out of the way. Don't be a lemming. Don't be and like in the old days, oh my God, old days, it was 3 years ago. We ran 3-minute races and we went to like 3.5 minutes. Right. We didn't drop out of the sky, guys. We didn't have a whole lot of power either. But you know what? We flew for 3.5 minutes, and we sometimes we'd come downhill, do a hairpin, try to come uphill, and we wouldn't have any juice. And we would literally run into the ground on the end. But you know what? We started applying braking. We started backing off the throttle. We didn't have dampened light, by the way. So you'd slide into like a hockey stop to scrub. Otherwise, you'd run in the ground. We actually implemented braking zones. Think of that. What drone race has a braking zone? And that's, so it's like you're driving on ice a little bit. You're like, I got to back off. I got to scrub some speed up. Otherwise, I'm driving into the ground, on the uphill. You know what? That's fun. That means you have to anticipate my lack of response, which right now, the only lack of response is I got 20 seconds to go in this race, and I know I'm going to hit sag, and I'm going to have to milk it. And that kind of goes to Alvin, what you were saying, that last 10% of the throttle curve sucks 25% of your juice.
Right.
You can, if you could figure out your efficiency curves and back off, and it's called, slow is fast, right? If it feels slow, you're fast because you're smooth. And I remember when I used to drive real race cars that we do lap timing, all of a sudden you'd hear your lap time and you're like, no way. I felt slower than molasses. And you're like, no, you were just smooth. You're
Carving.
You're
carving.
And like I said, fast. If you're herking and jerking, you're probably not smooth,
Right.
So anyway, so I the recap, for 2/3 of the people, not an issue, but 6S doesn't cost more in the big scheme of things. We're talking $10, maybe $20 per build, maybe. Batteries are cheaper, so that you make up the motors there.
And you abuse the batteries less, right? Yep. So that's the other bonus. So you get, not only do you get more power, sustained power, but you also get more lifetime out of the battery.
Lifetime.
Yeah. Remember in helis, all we cared about was getting our packs through.
Right.
So and what most people don't realize, the number one way you kill packs is, and I see it all the time, because I'll ask guys when they land, I'll go, what are you landing at? Oh, not bad. And I'll just, for the hell of it, go up and check them. And they're landing at like 3.62.
Right.
I'm like, dude, it has to bounce back. By the time you land and check your batteries, you got to be over 3.7, or you are damaging your pack. 3.65 is damaging your pack, after you land.
3.8, you
safe.
have 30% left in the battery.
My roll is 3.75.
Yeah.
All right, 3.75 means, I don't really care about damaging it. I'm not like a racer though that's landing at 3.6 or 3.4 or whatever. You are destroying batteries. You're like, that's like a fast food restaurant in terms of batteries there.
So if you have a comment on that one, definitely leave it on Facebook with us. We'd love to hear your predictions. We're going to try to see which one's right, because you can't predict
engage
it.
you.
And we will engage you. Elvin, what's your predictions between 4, 5, and 6S?
It's just going to come down to who's going to do the homework. That's what I think. It always comes down to that. Even if you come out on the track with a V8, you know what I mean, an 8S system, you still got to learn how to fly it, and it's not just about going fast. It's about carving, like we said earlier. If you carve the track, you tend to fly smoother. You exert less energy. You pivot from vertical positions less. Those are all the things that add up to wasted energy. So if you can carve a track and stay in a flow where you're smooth, and you will decrease your lap time and increase your battery efficiency.
All right.
Also, one more thing.
Go
Drone X was in 2016. We were open class.
Mm-hmm.
2016. I'm like, and guess what? Not a single person took advantage of it. It's cheap. Now keep in mind.
Hold on. There were no equipment to take advantage of it either.
Yeah, I would give you that. Okay, I'll give you that. But I mean, like 6-inch props. Mm-hmm. I'm like, you can put 6-inch props, lower your KV, and we can start flying 3.5 minutes, guys. Especially if we design the course to make it technical. Which is really hard to do now, because guys are so good that even the most technical course can still be a barn burner. They can still be pegging it. For the good guys, There's only so much.
Definitely.
You make the hole so small that it's a crapshoot, and that's not fun.
No, it really isn't. And if you guys are experimenting with 4, 5, 6S, definitely do it safely. I think there is a lot of benefits to 6S, but I think for a lot of people, you're going to waste a lot of money. That's all I'm going to say. Let's go ahead and move on.
So leave your comments in the comments below, and we'll revisit this a year from now.
That's right. I have a good prediction. Greg's going to be right, but I'm still going to stubbornly stick to mine. Greg, what's your predictions for 2018 and onward?
Oh, is that an open-ended question?
Open-ended question.
Oh, well, let's pick a subject matter. The one that we've been having a debate on behind the scenes is DRL.
Okay.
Go.
So before I tell you my opinion,
all right.
What is your guys' opinion?
Elvin, you're going first.
2 years from now, where are we at?
Elvin, you're going first.
Oh, man. Okay, so here's my thing about DRL, right? So I think it does a well job with displaying the sport. I think it does really well with that. It's drawn a lot of attention to drone racing. Unfortunately, they haven't done anything. It's still drone racing. You know what I mean? It's not. It's not. I mean, I think they've lost the excitement point, or it's dwindled down to excessively like. I remember when kids would go, "Oh, I saw drone racing on TV." Now nobody gives a shit. I mean, that's what I'm saying. So that's where I feel about DRL. They've lost some of their advantage of the market, the use of the market, and you know, who's going to race? I mean, what are they going to do different this year? I mean, that's another thing. I mean, the ship has changed, and has it changed drastic? Not really.
How do you fix it? How do you feel? What do you suggest?
I think what they need to do is do something different other than the way they've been doing it. Like they need to put a challenging race in, or open it up to some other people, because the 12 guys that they have, people are scared to race those guys when they show up at regular races. You know what I mean? There's like Gab. People are scared to race Gab today. I mean, and I know people are going, "Oh yeah, I'll race Gab." Yeah, until you get your ass on the line. Sometimes things change, and your outcome, the outcome has, the pressure becomes more. Anyway, but I don't know really, to tell you the truth, other than they're gonna have to change.
So, okay, so why? You're up.
Okay, so
I'm the show host now. I'm the
okay. There you go.
You're the host.
Greg's the show host now. Okay, this is the Gregg FPV podcast. Well, I do have a lot of predictions, but a lot of them I don't want to say, because I do talk to a lot of the pilots that actually fly there. Here's where I think they're doing it wrong. In every major sport that we watch and we love and we anticipate, the off seasons are build-up seasons, okay? There's still content and production being done in the off season that leads up to the start of the season. With DRL, you don't get that. And that's, in my opinion, the reason why it's really not growing in the facets that they want it to grow, is because, like, I'm a big football fan, right? Even in the off season for football, I'm looking forward to the draft, summer camp. Who are they gonna sign? Who are they not gonna sign? There's no aspects of this to drone racing right now. It's either it's on TV or it's not. It's 100% or it's 0, and that's a problem, right? Because if you're going to be a seasonal sport and you're not going to be on all the time, you can't have a 0% of content. That's death, okay? That's death. Yeah. There is 30 new sports that come out every year, and every one of them wants to be the next big thing. That means every year you're competing with 30 new sports that want to take your audience. So when you're not on air, somebody else is going to be. And that is my biggest predictor. I don't think there's a build-up to the event every year, so I don't think there is a draw every year. When it's on TV, though, it's pretty good, but the problem is the schedule isn't very consistent. If you actually look at the ESPN schedule, they're on at like 10 o'clock, and then sometimes they'll be on at 12 o'clock. You need a little consistency there. But I think, just in general, talking to the pilots, they love how DRL works. There's true love and professionalism behind that organization. And I truly hope that they do succeed. But I would not put my money into their stock right now to say they will.
Okay, I'm going to ask one question here, and I think this defines the solution. And both of you guys hit on this. Is it is it entertainment? From their perspective, is it entertainment or is it a sport? Where do they want it to go?
Right now, I would say it's entertainment, to be honest with you, because like the facets of what it takes to define a sport isn't quite there, because it's a little too simplistic, to be honest with you. I don't want to be mean about it. And it's also the fact that, it's on or it's off. So it's entertainment to me.
So, wow, if you're saying that, then I'd hate to ask you about what DR1.
Hey, now.
Wow, that was harsh.
No comment.
Okay, so here's my prediction. So, let's make predictions that are finite.
Okay, go.
Finite.
I question if they'll not be on this season, but I highly doubt they'll get their extension from ESPN season after this, unless a couple things potentially can change that. Number one, they buy their own advertising. In other words, they buy their way onto program. That's what Champ Car did. They couldn't get a network, so they bought the time and sold their own ad space. And they can do that if Allianz wants to, do that. They can take Allianz's money and buy it. Okay, so that's faction one. Faction two, if they change the format. Okay, the format itself. Now we have to think about that because drone racing, as I've always said, is extremely boring. The video production quality, the cinematography of DR1 is A+. I mean, it's great. And I can't imagine them doing anything better. Their venues are getting, even though they're cool, at the end of the day, they all look the same, with the exception of Miami Lights. Miami Lights is cool. And when I watch DCL, I love every one of them. They're flying in these European, now I like European old cities. I mean, I dig that. That's my thing. So when I saw that, I'm like, that's really cool. I like the commentator from DCL. I like they do a quasi-team format that for the life of me, I can't figure out, but it sounds cool, right? They put two members of each team. They compete individually, but and I don't know who's leading, but it feels like a race, right? And some of those courses that those DCL guys, that salt miney one, that's kind of the mall where I can't get enough of that. I'm like, that's as cool as beans. Conversely, we look at DR1, which I've only saw like a little promo clip where they were flying the airplane junkyard, and they're interviewing Sean Taylor, greatest guy, talk about how to hit a triangle gate straight on from 200 meters away. You're like, and we got to line it up. It's, my God, there's nothing technical about this. You line it up, and they're trying to make this like, and I understand he's got nothing to work with, so he's just doing the best he can. Right. I'm like, your courses suck. And I only saw now on DR1, they did do something cool that I never got to saw, which is they took Tiny Whoops and they went through a Hollywood set, which is just like Drone Clan Wars. I'm like, I like this. They did team racing. So I never saw that episode, but I was looking for it because as we all agree and you guys have done those. You've done the IDRA events where there's even short team races are exciting, right? Yes. Because you're like way exciting. They don't need to be, I think 12 minutes to 6 minutes. As long as there's a pit stop or two, there's something there to follow. So my prediction is if they're they being DRL, if they're a entertainment company, what do you do when you get cut? You got, this isn't Tough Mudders where you're making your revenue by selling 2,000 people to come out to Chicago and play through the mud as a team, right? That's your revenue source. You're not going to get 2,000 pilots, which led to, as you know, DRL was making the rounds, calling a bunch of us. They called me, and I used it as an opportunity to say, okay, why are you calling all my buddies? And I'm not sure why they're calling, but the only thing I could think of is that they said, we're trying to get in touch with our market. I'm like, well, if you're on ESPN, calling me isn't your market, right? Your market is the 20 or 30 reported million people that are watching it. Well, I'm sure that those numbers are legit, but what was the engagement of those people? The same thing with like web. Everybody I know has seen that for 35 seconds as they channel surf, right? Right. I don't have any problem with running into them and seeing the content. I just wait for the second episode of that event and just watch the last 10 minutes.
It's like baseball. You just watch the highlights and you're done. It's like, okay, I watched the whole game.
So they have to change format. The other thing that was getting to your point, why was they started to do this, and I applaud them for doing it. You were the one who woke me up to the fact that said a freestyle video will garner like 20 times more views than a race video will. So what does that tell you what the people want to see? Freestyle. Problem is, running freestyle competitions aren't fun to run. They're not really fun to participate in, and you can't get throughput, right? You can do them, but as a broadcast venue, maybe. I don't know. I don't know because I don't watch freestyle videos. I watch a couple guys.
Closed site building diving.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, but once you've seen a building dive once.
Hey, but everybody wants to do it. So it's like, that's one of those things. It's like repeat That's what one of the few things about drone racing that or freestyle that just blows me away. Like I love I love diving trees, right? Like you screw up and you're in the tree, right? You know, building diving, you screw up and you're still on the ground, right? Your
All
stuff
right.
is on the ground.
All right. Let me ask you this question. Since you asked me, it's my turn to ask you. Is DRL or DR1, you can answer both, a sport or entertainment?
Oh, right now they're clearly entertainment because what's a sport? Actually, Todd Wall and I were talking about this today. If it's a sport, you need the AAA team, the B teams, the feeder system. And this is my fundamental thing that I always think about is why am I not engaged? Well, because I fly. Well, no, I should be more engaged because I fly. Golf is equivalent to watching paint drying and grass growing channel, right? Mm-hmm. But so many people watch the Masters because they play golf. That's why they watch, because they're connected in some way. So until more people flying drones, you're not going to get people drawing it unless it truly is entertainment. So you need a series. Todd would tell me that it has to be live. People have to watch it and engage it. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I haven't thought about it. I know that it's hard for me to engage an audience. If I can keep an audience member engaged for 20 minutes and keep them there, I'm giving myself an A+. And I work like the Dickens to figure out how to keep people watching my event for 20 minutes. With team racing, I got a better chance at it, right? So I can give them a dose, and then I could do some audience engagement, and then give them a dose and an engagement. So yeah, it has to convert to a sport, which is why I would imagine they were making the rounds and making phone calls this last month or so.
Here's the thing. The medium in which they're doing it is the wrong medium that actually attracts drone racers. Like, for instance, if they were to broadcast on ESPN, but simultaneously they had 8 live streams, one for each pilot in the air, and you can either choose to watch it on ESPN or you can put on a set of goggles and live stream the FPV view of the actual race while it's airing, I guarantee you will get this community to watch because they can follow their favorite pilots. Every one of those favorite pilots, they have a huge following. So if like Gab's live streams on Channel 1 on Twitch, right? You can watch the nice HD view, and then you can put on your goggles and watch his FPV feed while it's going on. There would be just something extra to make people watch. But until they give that extra, or they're willing to go outside the box of what is traditional broadcasting, I just don't think the entertainment factor is at 10 yet. It's kind of at I watch it pretty intensely, and even I watch it at a 7. What about you, Greg? What do you think?
Formula One tried that and failed, but their failure was not the same reason. Their failure was it was a paid premium service, and they had I remember Bernie Ecclestone talking about the failure. It lasted for 2 years. He goes, it's very expensive to take 400 people, put them on the road, and pay for 400 hotel rooms, and right, because that was a service that you could punch in to one of 8 different feeds live, right? So I'm like, okay, that's a different problem. That doesn't relate to it. I still say that wouldn't work because the races are so short that I can manage a lot of things in my brain at once, and I consider myself a knowledgeable viewer, and I get overwhelmed. I get anxiety attacks when I'm watching 5 videos, and that's always been my number one gripe with every single broadcast is, for some reason, and we talked about this in the past, throwing 8 videos on the time frame is not.
No,
better.
Not 8 videos, 8 different channels, and then you can watch the channel you like.
If you could extend that experience to like an IDRA 6-minute race, yes. 2 minutes, by the time I figure out who to change, the guy's crashed or it's over. So True. I think it's length, not so much that. 2 minutes is bad. 6 minutes, and for team racing, 20 minutes is very engaging. I find I can focus in and watch. Like when I watch a team race that's being simulcast, I don't go to YouTube to watch it. I go to live time because the data is right underneath it. So I can follow the lap count. even though there's a 10-second delay. But I get off on that. I'm like, oh, so-and-so. I wish I knew who was flying, because then I could, right? We need to make this connection of this kind of goes to drone clan wars. And what I'm doing, and as far as I know, I'm the only guy who's ever done what I'm going to do. And it's not even hard. That's what is, there's three things we have to connect to make this a user experience. We have somebody sitting in a chair with sticks. So that's the first thing we need to lock in. The next thing we do is we need to associate his point of view, right? And then the third thing is the physical thing called a drone that's flying out, right, in the course. Now, a traditional car racing, we can see the car driving around. We can see the driver because he's sitting inside the car. Right. We can't see his point of view. So I'm saying three things is an awful lot to do. And what I'm doing with Drone Clan Wars is you'll almost never see me put up a video that's got more than one concept showing. Nobody does that. No, if you did that in broadcasting school, you would get a big old letter F and be kicked out of Columbia or New York Film School, because show me any sporting event that says, hey, Formula One, we've got a live camera in every single car. Great, throw 20 images up at the screen because more is better. But that's what we do. And people, I want to do live streaming. I'm like, nobody wants to watch that crap. No, that's just dumb. And because it's 2 minutes, it's even dumber. So what we're doing is I've got a pit cam. We're slicing it up. And we're all teams. So you're seeing two pilots. Their names are right under their head. And this is not lifetime software. This is, it's way in the back there. You kind of see it. That's my setup. So you can see, and then right next to them is their FPV feed. And the way it's positioned, the audience is sitting directly across from the pilots. So in front of them, there's the drone. So you can start to associate. And then on the whole screen, right above them is a big old honking bay number. Number 1, number 2. So you can start to associate that. And the long-term vision I've always had is be able to use colors on the course. And then as people go through things, I could light up the area where they're sitting, light up the obstacle they went through. But not all of them at once, because that's no different than spraying a bunch of information. Say, we're going to do, what's my term that I've been using, ride-alongs. You know, when I'm on the mic this weekend, which for the audience will be the previous weekend, and when I'm doing my Scholastic Championship, I'm going to be like, let's ride along with Nutria High School's varsity #1 team, so-and-so. And they can see the two people sitting. They can see one person isn't flying, and he's co-piloting because we do pit stops and team racing. And then they'll be able to see his quad because I'll be able to direct the audience. They're coming through the finish gate now. Take a look at it. And they'll be able to put all these three things together, plus some lap time. Not too much, because I've always told the lifetime guys, I'm like, information overload. You're just bombarding me with tons of data. And at least with lifetime, we have the ability to turn that on or off, for the screen. And I turned it off because that's my job as a commentator, right? Is to, I'll show a lap time, but not the last 64 lap times for the last 8 pilots. Too much information. And our races are 8 minutes at the Scholastic level. So I have time to develop a storyline. So anyways, that's a long answer.
No, this actually is a good transition into our next topic. So really the future of drone racing is going up in size, and I'm talking 1,000 millimeters as an X class, or going down in size, which is something what Gregg has been pursuing, is instead of sticking to the traditional 5-inch, 6-inch, some people are toying with sub 3 inches, but it's not really that popular. Really, Gregg has been pushing the forefront of micro drone racing, and it has a lot of benefits because it's significantly more affordable. You can fly in much more venues, and it's much more accessible to everybody. From the pilots, to people who wants to help the pilots, to the people who want to watch. So, Gregg, tell us a little bit about your team racing format, your endurance format.
Okay, nice segue there. Okay, so the first thing, everybody who's watching at home, thank you for watching. Here's a free thing. Free is a good marketing word, right? There's this document. Okay, it's basically a write-up that I did from last year's experiment. So let's back up a little bit. Why do we race? Some people will say for the camaraderie. That will last for 9 months. After 9 months, you will not care about the camaraderie. You'll be like, you're there for the endorphin release, the physical chemical reaction that goes through your body while you're racing. That high, that natural high, comes from battles. First, it comes from just nailing a course yourself. But the moments that you remember for the whole year will be when you were battling somebody. Okay? So if we make that assumption, say, well, great, do more of that, and everybody will race forever, right? Okay, well, easier said than done. Pilots want, they may not say it, they want shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter flight times. And Shannon and I have said 2 years ago, we went, because we were lobbying to hold it at 3 minutes. 3 minutes. No, we can't make it last. I'm like, lower your props. No, we don't want to do that, right? The whole power to weight. We don't get, we want more power, but we refuse to add more weight. I'm like, okay, whatever. Do what you want to do, So we lost 30 seconds a year, and that was the big scuttlebutt with Joe Scully, who I defended because he used real data to defend his point and real behavior. We're going to go for 1.5 minutes, which started, the cluster of all discussions. And I'm like, but that's the behavior the pilots are doing. All he's saying is this is based on fact. So how could you dispute this? He gave you the choice of 2 to 2.5 minutes, and you chose 1.5 minutes with 3 consecutives as the fastest lap. That's the background, the quick background of it. Okay. So what was the point of this this filibuster here? Team racing. Okay, so I'm saying, how can we fly longer? Well, we can do that through team racing. Okay, so the number one issue that you start to drive at is, where do we lose all our time? Why is it that it takes me 8 hours away from my house and the average flight time stick time is only 8 minutes? Most people don't know that, but it's all documented on live time. Whenever somebody posts a live time sheet, I go to position who's ever about a third of the way down. And nowadays, if I'm practiced and sharp and fly smart, I'm like, that's where I'm going to be. I'm going to be in that half to third now, depending on how good everybody is around, but that's where I'm good. So if I fly smart and practice, I can be in there. How much are those guys flying? And the average is a minute and 15 seconds per flight. Throw in crashes, all that other miscellaneous. And I even tweaked the number to say, whatever your average flight time is, I'm assuming when you crash, you made it halfway around. So I look at your average lap time and I do all the math. 8 minutes. It's 1 minute and 15 seconds per flight consistently, no matter what sheet I look at for the bottom third. I'm like, I go away from home for 8 hours. I leave at 7 to 8 in the morning. There aren't many races in Chicago anymore during the summer. So I drive to my neighbors in the Milwaukee or Rockford or Central Illinois or where have you. And I come home at around 5 or 6 p.m. That's about an 11-hour day for me. And I got 8 minutes of flight. And that's not good. And I'm done with that. I refuse to do that. So fix the problem. So my friend who owns Good Venture Drones, plug, he's been helping the community out. He helped me out. He helps everybody out. Now he's got his own little business, and it's getting to be a bigger and bigger business. So he goes, Greg, you got to try these micros. I came from helis. I hated micros. Those MCPXs, one of my heli pilots at IRCHA last year won Horizon Hobbies little micro competition. That was my buddy. He can fly a micro better than anybody because he won. He could do Pyro TikToks with an MCPX, which for those who don't know that's really hard to do. They look like rainbows, but he could do all this stuff. Because Greg, you got to try these. And then all I was doing was flying over grass and dropping $30 in parts on this little thing, right? I'm like, this is stupid. And I'm going to my mid-size helis where I don't break anything. I stay airborne. So they told me to get into micros, and I said no. And so I was really biased against them. So there's my disclaimer. And then I fly it, and I broke the thing, and some of the motors were crap, and you figure it out. You figure out what works. So for me, the solution was 1104s. That made all the difference in the world. Not so much prop guards or not, and then a little better batteries. I'm flying really thin frames, really light setup, and I realized nothing broke. Because I don't know, you guys, you go to a 5-inch event, stuff's getting broke. It's destroyed. Lots of stuff. And that's fun for a while. And then it's not. Same thing with helis. You got to get through the crash phase. So now I'm like trying to analyze, well, why am I not breaking stuff? Well, two things. You don't have the weight, right? And you're not flying in the backyard, right? Through that door is the best flight second best flight place in the world. I love my backyard for what I do. So if I don't have the speed, I don't have the weight, and I'm crashing guys into hard surfaces, just like a tree. There's no, and it's not breaking, and I can live with it. And I'm having fun. And if it does break, I can just walk into my shop and fix it and go right back out, pop open a Mr. Brewski and, and crank my tunes, and my neighbors don't complain, and I have any course I want. So I'm like, this is cool. But what it really did is it opened up the fact that we can put people out onto a hot course. So if you go down, they could run into a hot course and not worry about getting sliced, which you can't do with the 5-inch. You can try, but I don't want to be the guy with that insurance policy, right? And as organizers, we worry about these things. Yes, so I'm like, in meantime, a year before that, I was doing all the school drone stuff, and I knew that I knew that they would hate team racing. I know, they don't want. I knew it. So I didn't even go there. I'm going to work with the kids and figure it out. So that's what we did in the last school years. We did 4-minute heats. So 2 pilots, one guy flies 2 minutes, another 2 minutes. So that leads to, why do we not fly a lot? Because staging represents, at the best you can do is 50%. 2.5 minutes of flight, 2.5 minutes of staging. So the 50% of your time at the most perfect venue, nobody's flying, let alone that number. Okay. Well, in team racing, go fly. Go. It's your problem to deal with staging, number one. Number two, on a 5-inch flight, if I crash and don't have turtle mode, I sit there and wait for the race to be over. On a micro, you run out and you grab it and you flip it over. So you finish your flights no matter what, because you still got battery, right? So that worked out really, really, really well. So then I'm like, I'm going to move this to adults, but in a very specific way. So specifically, there was more problems, but if you look at this document, I looked at it from all perspectives. I stopped doing 5-inch events because my wife said, you always come home in a pissed off mood. And I'm like, why do you do this? Why are you, basically, it's a full-time job and you're losing money and you're not, you're losing money, you're taking time, you're not having fun. Why do you do this? I'm like, you're right. I don't know why I'm doing this. This is dumb. And I'm not getting that endorphin release. I'm not even flying. I'm organizing because in my mind, I wanted a great production. So something has to give, right? And I wasn't getting the help, even though I don't blame that. That's an excuse. So I won't use that as much. Okay. So as much. So here's what I'm saying. So for all pilots, the goal is to extend that rush, that natural high of battles. Number one. We do that through getting close racing and just more stick time. We'll create more of those battle opportunities, but not too long, just long enough. Also, and this is a unique thing that my neighbor, who is, one of those people that loves everybody and she's just a people person and hugger, Well, like when women go out, they go out to eat and they sit at a table and they talk like forever. And guys, we go to a ball game, we go to a bar. So guys bond, it's called shoulder to shoulder, and women bond face to face. That's how you develop relationships. Nothing is more shoulder to shoulder than sitting next to a guy for 25 minutes where you're if you crash, you're letting him down, right? So and when he's flying and you're changing your battery, waiting for your 2.5 minute stint, you're going, because you're counting his laps because he's got to come in. You're saying, we start off the race with, how many laps you're going to do? I'm going to do 5. Okay. I'm going to count them as I'm changing my props or whatever I need to do, but I got 2.5 minutes. If I broke props, I'm on my second spare machine, you're double stinting, right? Which means we're going to lose a little in the pit, but that's cool. That's what makes it interesting. So we can build stronger relationships on the team. If you want the social component, this is it, right? Newcomer pilots. When I offered this, once again, I didn't care about headcount because it's in my backyard. I'm doing a free barbecue, free beer, music, tunes. Come out, have a good time. So I got a whole bunch of new people coming that have never been to a 5-inch event. Never, and probably never will. And maybe because it was the way it was marketed, like just come on, bunch of bros. And I hate saying it because it sounds so stupid, but come on out, we're going to go fly, and I don't care if you do bad because we're here to fly, because I like flying. From an experienced pilot, here was a problem I had when I did a team race at Drone Clan Wars last year. Fun event, team racing, blind draw. You're going to it's just fun. Great idea. But when you see a competitor get assigned with someone who's having fun and they want to compete, the experience goes down the hill for that guy. So I go, and it was obvious. And they weren't complaining, but I'm like, I can't, this is a wrong format. I have to fix this somehow. Good guys aren't going to come to this. And we got to try that. So I needed that. And here's the real big one. As an organizer, I sat down and said, what is it I like? What is it I don't like? When I go to run an event, why is it? I just was stressed. I was, because in my world, if I couldn't start the event on time, I just hated myself. I failed. It was a big letter F right here, F me. So I'm like, okay, Greg, you don't have to make it. I'm like, yes, you do. If you're going to do it right, or don't do it. And I'm like, well, it was the constant creating a manifest and lists of lists. And if I forget a Cat 5 wire, we got no timing. If I forget my hammer, I got no flags. No one can hammer anything in. And it was like every single thing you bring is needed, right? Loading the car the day before, fixing the equipment when you come back, for promotion, getting AMA insurance, dropping the check off, making sure people aren't littering the place so I don't get, not only not get a bill for it, but I got to be a good, renter, right? And that's part of my duty, because I have a relationship with these people. So I needed to find a way to make it as easy as possible. When I did these backyard events, I went from stress to having fun. So what I did was I set up the track at around I work from home, 3 or 4 o'clock, right? Open up some beers, crank some music. It's one thing to load a car. It's nothing to say, oh, I need another table. And I just go get the table. Oh, I got to get some extension wires. And everything, it's a walkout basement. I just migrate everything out. Music's cranking, having fun, build the course, get some flights in, me time. Then I got a barbecue. It's 7 or 8 o'clock. Again, cook all the food the day before, and I like to make good food. It's like, well, it's barbecue. How good? We're not talking fillets here, guys. But,
I like my barbecue.
It's not hot dogs. I want to make something good. Something that, because we went to one event, Noah Katzman, we went to Bladed Fury, and he made brats. And Noah brings, you chip in or whatever, but you get good food. I'm like, no, I haven't had a brat in so long. And this to me was like filet, and I'm like, I want to go back just because of the food. And as you get older, food's a bigger deal. But I'm not fussy. It's a good brat, and he does a great job. It's a great experience. It's like, it's cool. So I'm like, that. So okay. So now that I had that, what's the format? So what I came up with is 2 pilot teams, 4 races, 25 minutes each. Why 25 minutes? We tried 30. Our team, we had 2 decent pilots, we were okay. And whatever things didn't go right, and we started falling behind. We were 6 laps down to the 20-minute mark. And mentally, my race was over. I crashed. I could care less about those last 10 minutes. And a 2-minute race, you don't have that problem because 2 minutes is gone. And a 25-minute race, 30-minute race, 10 minutes is an eternity when you can't catch up. Even if those guys crash, we're only running 30-second laps. There's only so much we can do. So mentally, I said, 30 minutes is too long. So then we tried 20 minutes. Yeah, 20. I'm like, let's just try 25. And that was the magic number. So 25 minutes. Now, if you think about that, 25 minutes means you're really flying 12 and a half minutes as an individual, right? If you're doing 4 races a day, that's 50 minutes of endorphin release. At a typical 5-inch event, you're only getting 8 minutes. So one day in my backyard is your whole season at 6 different events with a 5-inch event. Put that in perspective. And that's not a fabricated number. So I'm like, great. So we solve the stick time problem, and we do that in 5 hours, right? 5 hours. That's 1 hour. So there's a group of pilots that fly. We run 4 dipoles, so we can put 4 up, no more. So that's 8 guys flying the first group, 25 minutes. They go charge their batteries. The next group comes up. So there's 2 heats and then 4 rounds. We do, and I'm anti-lunch because lunch is just suck more time away from home. I already don't get to the next heat for 40 minutes. Just keep it moving, man. Don't stop the event for lunch. Well, they do that for raffles, and that's a whole nother issue. Okay, so I'm getting tons and tons of flight time. Now I got to get that endorphin release, right? So I got to get close racing. That's the next problem to fix. And I got to make sure that the good guys feel that it's something in it for them.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what I found. The format was, the concept is, how can we get good pilots to compete as a team, but be rewarded for individual performance? So it's a team race, but you're individually being credited for performance. Okay, now how do we do that? We switch the teams every single race, and you get 1 point for every team you beat. Now, think about that. And after every race, we look at the scores and we rejuggle. We're trying to create like an NFL draft or any professional sports where you're trying to create parity, right? You're not trying to create a bell-shaped extreme. You're trying to get everybody leveled and smooth, right? For skill. And it's pretty easy because you can look at the board and go, well, Tim, and by the way, we're hearing lap times, right? So it's not like, okay, I'm shooting 32s, he's shooting 28s. Okay, he's running a bigger machine. He's got to take more pit stops. So he's not as fast, and it all works out, right? Okay, and you rejuggle the schedule, and by the time you get to the third race, you got really good parity, number one. Number two, you're now shoulder to shoulder with 3 different people. 3 people you may never have talked to at a regular event. So, because I'm forcing the mix just for parity, right? So that's really good. So now it's much more social because it's a meaningful interaction, not a passive interaction. So that really worked out good. Like Shannon's doing a big 200 lapper, right? And I don't have a problem with that. It's a different type of race. The problem to just do a entertainment style race doing that format is not everybody is geared up to do that, right? That takes a lot of structure. Yep. With our races, if you got 4 batteries, you're done. 4 to 5 batteries, 6 is peak, right? You haven't crashed, you're running a fast setup, and you're only running 2-minute flights. You're going to go through 6 batteries. But you have to be able to charge all your batteries in your 25 minutes. So a new problem surfaced. Some newbies were coming. I don't want to say newbies. That's the wrong word. Newcomers. They're newcomers. They're not new flying. They're just new to organized racing. So they come up and we're like, okay, you guys are up. I've juggled the teams. People have made their frequency changes. Oh, I've only got 1 charged. And I'm like thinking, what the? I mean, it's been 20 minutes. Oh, I'm only charging you 1C. You're like, dude, it's race day, baby. You're parallel charging and you're going whatever it takes. It's race day. Well, the problem as an organizer is I've already rejuggled the teams with parity and people have already and that whole board has to be redone, which isn't a mountain to climb with 5 or 6 guys. But when you have 16 guys, it's a little bit of mental gymnastics to get parity. And he has to drop out of the next event. I mean, right, the next race because he's not ready. So guys start lending him batteries. It's a learning curve, but you're like, so in our event descriptions, you must be able to charge 20, or 5 batteries or 4 batteries in 20 minutes. I disclaim it. Get a parallel charging setup. Bring a 4-port charger. Do what you need to do. Okay, so there was that. You're competing against the entire field, just like at a regular, timed race or a timed race. So that works. So now my question in my mind was, will a good racer emerge at the top at the end of the day, right? Because it's random, semi-random assignments, and I've done parity right, it should start to smooth. I want to see the best 3 pilots getting and I make little micro trophies because it's a micro race. It's this big, right? I got my little laser stuff. You got it. I got bad eyes. You got to get your little magnifying glass to read what it says. If I use the good material to laser with, I can do 6 point on that sucker. Jesus. If the right material, you can laser anything. So it worked. The top guys were on the podium. So I'm like, they'll come back because they're not mad at the guy who's weaker than them because the whole goal is parity. And parity creates battles. And battles is what we remember 2 years from now. So that was really, really, and here's what's even cooler about this. Parity. Let's just say you've got 4 guys, bell-shaped curve. 2 guys are about the same ability, a guy who's weak and a guy who's really strong. The guy who's really weak is going to get together with the guy that's really strong and the other 2. You're going to have lead changes like there's no tomorrow. Because when the weaker guy is up, we're kicking their ass. And then the other guy comes up. What the hell happened? Because you don't know. You got your goggles on, right? All of a sudden, you're in lap times. You're going, what happened? We were ahead by a lap and a half. And now you're down a lap and a half. And now your endorphins start to rain. It rains endorphins, folks. So that's why I'm really high on this. We did 3 events. I'm a big believer that it takes 3 times to get it right. And I even if you think you know what you're doing, 3 times. I got the process down, and that's when I said, okay, we can't get anybody in Chicago to organize events because it's too hard, too much of a pain, blah, blah, blah. Other guys around the area have no problem, but with a few exceptions, there's reasons why they've been successful. Some guys are new. Some guys have it in their backyard, so they don't. That stress is relieved. And another group's got 4 to 5 guys who all help out. So yeah, everybody find me a onesie twosie operator, and they don't last more than 2 years. They just won't. They won't. There's no benefit to them unless there's a business aspect, right? They're a shop or they're selling something. Okay. Specifications. We talked 25 milliwatt dipoles. I learned this year their frequency 1367 work. I learned that with the schools. I finally got to do. I was prepping product for a school, so I finally had 4 quads in front of me with 4 monitors, and I was able to do the testing I always wanted to do under my time frame. Right here, set them up, try every combination of race band, putting quads on top of each other and, moving them in front of the receivers. And I found it, on my own, and I published it. And then 5 other guys says, yeah, that's the winning ticket. Right. And I'm like, oh, great. So I'm validated. Thank you. So now I know that I've got clean video. The question is, when we move to adults, if you ask the pilots, there's always going to be weight creep. Right? They want to always make it a little bit bigger. But what about my 4S setup? What about, and you're like, dude, it's a backyard micro race. If you want 5-inch, go 5-inch. If you want 4-inch, go 4-inch. This ain't it. So then I had and I asked the guys, because a lot of these guys they know what they're doing. I mean, I value their opinion like gold. Some of these guys are DRL pilots, man. They're good. They're smart. So I was like, okay, what's the weight cap? So, and then, and don't listen to the guys who want weight creep. And the answer is, if you're the guy going to get your quad, and don't forget, these little guys are kind of quiet. They can sneak up on you. And in a backyard event, it's tight. There's no safe havens in these backyards. So you design the course to say, here's the Bermuda Triangle. Stay in that triangle and you're not going to get hit, right? But you venture out. So there's a lot of course issues that come up. So, and I've been doing this with the schools, trying to find out what's the safe weight that we can take these guys to 2S brushless setups. Because this year it's been tiny whoop, but next year I want to go to 2S for the more advanced kids. And we kind of agreed that if you want to have a run cam, a 20-inch CCD camera, you want to have 2.5-inch props, 1106 style motor, which is plenty. And if you want to run like an Axie antenna, so you can put a good antenna on it, and a 3S 550, you should be able to stay under 150 grams. Okay. But is that still the right answer? So ask you guys, if you're out in the backyard and somebody's, think about your longest straights, 40 feet. If you get pegged in the head when you're bending over to get your quad, what's the right number where it'll hurt, but you won't get concussed and have to go to the hospital and have, I don't know, but I'm guessing that 150 grams is about it.
I'll let him speak
I can
first.
vouch for that part.
Okay. Do tell.
Okay. Elvin, you go first.
I about 2.5 months ago, I hit myself about wide open. Just and what it was is I glanced off my head. So it wasn't straight on. I said, I'm coming in. I might just pop. And I went to one knee, thought about it, then got up and went, you know what? That really damn hurt.
Wait, how much did it weigh?
It basically.
Yeah, hold it up if you got it.
It's this ship. And let me see. Where's the scale?
Is that a 3-inch? Just give us the specs real quick.
This is a 3-inch.
Oh.
And this is a 3-inch running 1108s.
So I'll tell you right now, you're about 170, 180 grams then.
Yeah.
Minimum.
Yeah. It's 180.
Okay.
On this one. The frame's thick and it's a heavy frame, but it's 4 millimeters thick. But it I was flying on 3S too. So when I hit myself, I was like, ow, that Like, I don't want to hit myself going any faster because I'm probably going to go to the hospital. So
See, I think that's too heavy. That's way.
I think right now you're right. Like the 2S setup I got here, which is 135 grams, with a 2S setup, is plenty fast.
Yeah.
Plenty of long flight time. I'm flying Bolt 2S high voltage 500s, and it's like 3S, but it's not 3S. You know what I mean? And I get plenty of right. I've flown this against a buddy of mine who's running 4S, and I can keep up with him. Right? I can't outrun him, but I can keep up. Like, he can't run away from me totally. Like, I'm on his behind the whole time. So I think this is like appropriate. I mean, okay, so everybody you see is broke. You know, it's broke.
See, here's the problem with 135 grams, because originally ours was 130 grams.
Mhm.
But what happens to the guy who's 135? So you bump it to 135.
Right.
Another guy just didn't build it right, and he's at 100. All of a sudden, and here was the rule we came up with: a baby hawk, right? That's the number one seller. It's a great machine. And what does that come in at? It's 1106s, 2.5 inches, and I think it's at about 141, 142-ish. I could be wrong on that. And if you put an axis, you're going to gain 6 grams on that too.
Right.
I
mean, and the Baby Hawk R, was what everybody's flying now, comes in several different styles, right? I mean, it comes in the 5,000 kV, then 6,000 kV, then 7,600 kV, and 7,600 kV is plenty of power on 2S for that ship. I mean, you can go to 3S, and you're going to get a lot more power, but really I don't see a big advantage unless the course is bigger.
Yeah, we're flying backyard. Your longest straight shouldn't be more than 40 feet because we don't want top speed. That's how we get hurt.
Right.
If you're coming around a turn and you hit me, if you don't catch me in my eyeball, there's no blood, right?
Yeah. I would say, I don't know. I'm with you, Greg. The problem with measuring by weight is that you're always going to get one person that's going to be a little over, and then are you going to ruin the guy's day for 5 grams? And exactly, that's the problem. So generally speaking, I like to go with different restrictions like 2S battery, 2-inch prop, or 2.5-inch prop. And it naturally weighs less because I'm telling you, you can come with a 3-inch prop. I'm going to force you to put a 2.5-inch prop, and that forces him to build light and not to build a fast quad. That's how I've generally done it. I don't know if you want to go that route or not, but those 2 specs usually is enough to keep the weight down. It's the prop size and battery.
Here's what I did do. First, it was 3S 1106, the standard blah blah. And I'm like, wait a minute, now we're back into the whole. I'm a hypocrite. I'm the biggest hypocrite in the world. I'm like, at the end of the day, weight kind of keeps that all in check because you can't do one without the other, and it all starts magnifying it. And here's the real: what causes pain? Causes pain by weight, by speed, and here's the other one: tip speed. So if your prop goes from 2.5 to 3, it isn't just a little bit faster. That velocity at the end is very fast, and that's what does the damage. So I'm like, 2.5 inch, not 3 inch. So I'm not giving in on that one. I don't care what prop angle you use. And while our rules officially state 3S, I'm taking that out. I'm going to tell the guys forget about it, because if a 4S guy comes to the table with 3,200 kV, why am he's flying slower head speed than everybody else on 4S. So why am I penalizing him? As long as he makes weight, I don't really care. Am I going to do weigh-ins? No, I'm not, unless it's, if you got a 2.5 inch prop, and if someone gets hit and gets hurt, I'm going to reevaluate everything. Because again, the whole purpose of this is, we were talking about this earlier. All micros did is they became an enabler to get endorphin releases. right? The goal was endorphin release in close-to-close battles with lots of stick time. That was the goal. How we got there is, I don't care how we got there. This is the only way I could figure out to get there. And then the other methods that you allow the good pilots to be, as I say, individual performance is rewarded in a team structure. So there's something in it from them. The other thing that was really unique, and this, I always look for expectations that I had going in, and then how I was wrong and why was I wrong? What bias did I have to lead me to go down the wrong path? And one of the biases I had was new guys are going to suck because they suck at 5-inch events, so they're going to suck for these events. They do not suck. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's slower speeds, or we tell them to fly within your ability. Teams get rejuggled based on parity. Just do the best you can. You know, flying slow and steady is great. And what happened? The newcomers, not newbies, flew more consistently, especially in the later races, than the good pilots, because the good pilots started to push, right? Because now we had parity. They felt that we got to push even harder because there's parity. Well, then they started crashing. And the other thing is they're flying faster with bigger rigs. They started breaking their crap. There's a certain level where you start turning into a 5-inch crash break fest. And it's, I mean, I saw, there was one guy, he was my partner, he's a really good guy. He was flying a beautiful, it was the first time I saw a really well-built 2.5-inch quad. This is before EMAX stuff, right? And he went through 2 of his quads. He was also flying faster because he had a 3S setup. So, you know, so his lap times were like 10% faster than me, right? But he was only getting 2 minutes of flight to my 3 minutes.
Because he was
so that
crashing.
was the next thing is, right. So, yeah, and he's crashing more. So I'm thinking, and so I developed a strategy calculator because I like the whole mathematics of it, you know. So what I did, welcome back, Alvin. One of the things that I didn't do right that I'm doing now, and I'm doing it with the schools as well, long pit entrances. In order to change strategy, the fast guys in shorter flights always still is the better strategy. I ran the number. Unless I make pit stops go from 15 seconds, which is nominal, to 30 seconds. And it's really hard to add 15 seconds to a pit entrance, right? Because a regular lap is like 25 seconds for a fast guy. So I got to basically create a long pit entrance, and you can only do so much. And there's just something to said about coming into pits. If you're an announcer, you know, you have time to ready up. You're like, oh, I can see he changed his flight line. He's going around this extra area, and he's coming. And that led to the other thing that I'm now doing going forward that I didn't do last year is you have to be able to go out into the course, but we're flying over the pit area, sort of, kind of. So now that area has to be elevated. So we have a non-obstructed path to go out to our Bermuda Triangle to retrieve our broken quads. You know, so in that, I mean, I got a cool backyard for it. I've got some trees. So I'm pulling out the ladder, running banners up at like 20. Don't forget, 20 feet is high for a 5-inch. It's like 60 feet for a. So you know, you're coming from there, and I got you diving down. It's like a roller coaster, man. Because you're like 20 feet, whoa, and then you go through a set of trees at a full bank. You're like, you know, there's a pucker factor. It's cool.
Right.
There is a pucker factor. Actually, I agree with you on the micros, because when I look at, like, you know, 40,000 feet above the, you know, the surface of the earth, the community in FPV, the most loyal and the most intensive community is actually the tiny whoop community. If you look at it from and there's something to be said about these micros and the fact that they're so flyable and people are so willing to try. And that's the big thing, right? The 5-inch racing out on a MultiGP event, it's kind of hard to get into. I mean, I've been pushing for 1 or 2 years to try to have it be, you know, accessible to newbies. At this point, it's pretty hard. If you're a new guy coming in, it is pretty intimidating no matter how hard I try to, you know, welcome you into the event itself. Tiny whoops and anything that's sub, it's very inviting. And it's, I don't know why. It's just easy to fly. I think a lot of them fly in stabilized mode. So, okay, go ahead, Greg.
Here's one more that no AMA. When I'm having it in my backyard, I don't have, first of all, as an organizer, I don't have to fill out the insurance form, mail it in, because I don't have a flying field that I buy for 1 year. I'm filling out the form for every event because I'm moving to different places. So I got paperwork to do. Not hard, but it is. It takes time to communicate. I got an event coming up. I have to go get everybody copied on it, blah, blah, blah. No AMA. Well, why don't you have AMA? It's in my backyard. Well, it's my backyard. I have homeowners insurance. If I had a neighborhood party and we were doing, remember jarts? Remember when jarts were going through people's feet?
Yeah.
I kind of relate that to this. If somebody gets hurt, it's like a jart going through your foot, but not as bad. But, so that's my mental image.
Elvin's
when
still
I
here,
go
yep.
When I get special insurance, if I had neighbors over to play jarts, no, it's a backyard. I got homeowners insurance. And
I will say I am one of those guys that got a hole in his foot.
You are?
We know Elvin's special now.
We were playing with some people that didn't know how to play, and my partner went like that and released way too early and was in my foot, and I was like, I think I'm going to scream, and everybody was like, why? And I was like, look at my foot, and I just started screaming, and I'm like, big old hole through the shoe, like into the ground. Everybody's like, dude, like, nobody knows what to say when you have a yart in your foot.
Did you have to get stitches?
Yes.
Oh.
So like, and I'm like not one of those needle guys. Like, so like me and the doctor's already having a discussion about whether or not I'm gonna kick his ass, and and whether or not my medical is gonna cover some other damage he's gonna do to me, And I'm like, he's like, I gotta give you a shot, and I'm like, for what? He's like, tetanus. Like, you haven't had a tetanus in a while, and I'm like, do I really have to get a shot? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh God. So like, it was just horrible, dude. Like, it's one of those things like you never imagine it happens, but it does.
Okay. And now we have, and you didn't get special insurance to have that backyard party.
No, and it wasn't that bad. I mean, it was, it didn't go through like the center of my foot or in between the big toes, and it was the edge of my foot. It caught me right on the edge of the tennis shoe, but it hurt like hell for a while.
Hey, okay, so that's a transition to getting a jart in your foot too. How do you transition from that? Here's an interesting phenomenon about the backyards. Speaking of backyard parties where people get hurt, right? Okay, so in Chicago, nobody wants to, the two groups that we have, chapters in this area, nobody wants to throw a race because it's work and no help, whatever. Mm-hmm. So then I said, a couple of years ago, guys reached out to me and says, Greg, can you, all we need is someone to grab the reins and maybe run our own little regional tour. I always thought of a way to build unity amongst our groups would be to have a series that moves from group to group. But I'm like, well, we already have MultiGP for that. We don't really need that. And at that point I was getting burned out. So I'm like, no. But then I'm like, I ran 3 backyard parties last year. I did my share. I want to do one. It's fun to do one because, it's like you're having a party. Right. 3, so I reached out to guys. And I said, when I said guys, I mean like, hey, anybody on my Facebook group, would you like to host? And we got 9 people. So we went from 0 to 9 across the Midwest. 9. Why? From this, I've been struggling like this. Well, why? Because not everybody, but a lot of people want to throw a party, right? They don't mind having a backyard barbecue if it's not overly, number one. Number 2, huge point. This is not a Go Drone X thing. This is a collective, right? There's other organizations who will slap their name, and I'm not talking about IDRA, but there are other organizations that just, I can think of the College Drone Racing Association. Right, yeah. Nobody realized that those guys organized the frickin' event, but not last year. That was not the way it was portrayed. So my thing is, okay, if you're running the event, you're the host. As an organizer, you get all the credit, number 1. Number 2, we're not trying to make money. It's a whole different mindset. We're chipping in money because you're running an event, and it's kind of like, rather than being potluck and bringing a dish to pass, we just give you the freaking money and you go buy the beer, you do everything, right? It's easier to coordinate that way. So 9
grocery stop.
And it isn't just chapters. In fact, it's not chapters. It's people. It's people
Right.
have a backyard. There's hobby stores getting involved, right? Hey, I've got a space. The problem that we had was some guys who haven't organized just think we can just waddle out to a park. And I'm like, no, we can't do that.
Right.
Well, one of our guys works for a school system. He used to work at a hobby store. Now he works for a school system. And I'm like, dude, I know your intentions are pure. Thank you. But we're not waddling out to a park unless you're going through all the insurance. At that point, we're back to the same problem we were before. Approvals, this, that, in the backyard, you only got to get approval from your significant other. And it's or your neighbors, and depending on what it is. So we went down that path. Well, it turns out he went to the school system and he said, can we use the playground? Now, you guys know what playgrounds look like.
Oh, yeah. They're fun.
The world's best micro course is in a playground. Now, you can't have an event at a playground. The police will be, there's always people walking in.
Right.
But we can if we get permission. And I told them, we will need to get AMA insurance. They may not ask for it, but it's $30.
Better to have it.
It's better to have it. You're the organizer, not me. It's $30. I'm an AMA chapter. No problem. So we now have a tour through 9 different places. We have a championship because everybody likes series. I like series. Keeps people coming back. It's addictive. You got it. We take your 4 highest scores and we're inviting the top 12 to this other guy's backyard. And why is it his backyard? Because he's the most centrally located of the people. So, it'll grow in time. It's not big head counts, and we don't want it to be big head counts because we don't have to cover a nut. We don't have to cover a rental nut, right? If 8 guys show up, I'm getting as much flying as if there's 16 because I fly for 30 minutes and I charge for 30 minutes, right? So, but no more than 16 because that's the max you could run, right? If you look at the numbers, 4 teams of 2 and 2 heats. What about more? Why would you want more than 16 people to cook for? This isn't a fast food restaurant. That's a lot. Where are you going to put them? I can only hold 12 back there. So that's another really, really, really good thing. The host gets the credit. The host gets the money, and we still have affiliation. So you can say good friends of, and that's the way we market it as, it's a bunch of guys getting together to do what we want. And then I know it's going to be addictive because it's designed to be addictive. So that's really it. I'm going through my notes. This document is on GoDroneX Facebook under the file section. If we can on this video, put a link. We can take a link.
Send me the link.
Go into it. I'm just looking at that's basic. We covered everything. That's it.
Okay, so let's start wrapping up this podcast because you gave a lot of good information. So this weekend you're going to be covering or you're going to be completing your Drone Clan Wars. Tell us a little bit about this event.
Yeah, Drone Clan Wars is basically micro endurance racing, just scaled down a little bit for the schools. This is our 2nd year. And as far as I know, we're the only ones who've ever done a scholastic competition. It creates up to senior year. If you don't know what's Drone Clan Wars, it's basically light tracks times 1,000. Animated lights, all programmed, thousands of lines of code, robotic gates, 15 feet in the air, twirling around. We've got you guys like gravity gates? Imagine an oscillating gravity gate, 15 feet up in the air doing that. So that, that plays little head games and it's fun. You guys like going through portals or gates? Imagine a gate that does this, right? So cool concept. What's our 3rd robotic? So we've got time warp. We've got air stairs as clouds and a deck that spin around. Okay, so all of these were built last year, all programmed. This year we've added a few more bells and whistles, an awesome video presentation. I get super stoked for it. And that comes this weekend. That's what we're setting up on Friday night. And then I'm going back to the Madison Makers Fair, which is, paid gig. They bring me back out. They're one of the few maker fairs that pays people for value propositions. They bring in really cool talent from all over the country to do some unique things. This is my first twofer where they said, let's do it again. And this year it's bigger, better. They've got a 40-foot by 40-foot netted cage. They drop the lights. Because I'm saying if you're not going to drop the lights, the whole effect just disappears, right? So now we're bringing everything up. 20-foot things rotating. I've got the logo wall, so the pilot stage, the music, from a video broadcast. I don't know if you guys know what stingers are. Stingers are the little things that rotate in, and then they open up, and then you do your scene transitions. I did that many years. Many people don't know that I did the first FPV broadcast in 2014-15. We had guys with ESPN cameras on their shoulders and $100,000 of gear. I had to program all that in After Effects to do all of those animations to be timing systems. So now, I'm not using lifetime, folks. Yeah, I'm not using lifetime to do the race, but all my video is custom. It's got a whole flow to it. My favorite new thing, and got this idea from David French. He gave me the inspiration where that staging, even though for schools isn't bad, it's 8 minutes and 4 minutes, right? We tried for 4 minutes for the kids, but I still have to entertain that crowd in 4 minutes. So I'm like, well, it's stressful for the pit boss. He's still got to get these kids to the line. And let me tell you, kids are different than pilots, pro pilots. They're literally perfect 3 minutes beforehand. And something magically happens from there to there where all hell breaks loose before they start. So you're stressing out as a pit boss to keep the show moving. And the problem is all invisible in the air, right? All these frequency things. So I don't know if you guys have an RF Explorer, but you plug that in and you've got a nice PC application that shows that screen beautiful. So I scraped that, put that as an overlay. I did my own Photoshop overlay to say where these channels should be, right? So 1, 3, 6, and 7 are the green bars overlaid, and the other ones are red. And then I take the actual camera and I put that into the appropriate square, and I put the pilots' names underneath those. So now the audience has been brought in to the same experience that the pit boss is going through. So as they plug in, they can see the frequency spike in that green arrow, and they see the video pop up. And now I got something to talk about. As we watch the pilots come powering up, it's a win-win. The pit boss likes it. The students like it because they can look over at their monitor in the pits and see them come up. We know they're on the right frequency because they can visually see it. So that's new for the broadcast. The whole show has been, beefed up. My dragon now puffs smoke out of his nose.
Boy.
Yeah. Well, it started with the smoke machine, and I fired up the old Halloween smoke machine, and I can tell you that smoke stinks. And when you do it indoors, outdoors, a lot of smoke is good. Indoors, a lot of smoke is a lot of smoke, and it stinks.
A lot of smoke is a lot.
So I had that'll be my late nights for the next 2 nights is, Internet of Things, cramming it all up.
Steam.
So I'm pretty stoked. So that's Drone Clan Wars. We got 2 of those going on. The champs, our second annual champs for the kids. And then the big adults. Same thing in the backyard, but robotic courses. So that's that.
That's pretty cool. Okay, I have 3 questions, and we'll wrap this up. And we're still not going to be short. I'm sorry, Greg. You failed.
I told you it's not us.
My bad.
Okay,
It's you,
number 1.
all you.
Obviously, this is a lot of fun. What do you recommend to somebody who's interested in coming to your event? What kind of quads should they be building? And
That
this is
was where I wanted to go.
Oh, I don't care. Show up with the micro and freaking fly. I don't just make sure it's under 150 grams. I don't have any advice. I'm not the guy when it comes to hardware stuff. I'm not the guy.
All right.
So,
Elvin, go.
we need that. We need that. So like right now, I'll say this. Okay. So if you guys want to race and you want to race 2.5-inch spec size, we're allowed to run the new RotoX 1107 motors. They're 7,600 kV. You can get those motors, run GemFam 2.5s or HQ 2.5-inch props, and you can get on a 3S 500 GNB, which is the battery of choice right now. It's not a Pulse, it's not a Thunder Power, it's not. I just want to it's a GNB. It's cheap. It's about $12 for the battery, and that's one of the things I wanted. We want you to understand too, is getting involved in the micro drone racing has its advantage in a lot of places. My Pulse batteries for my 5-inch is $47.60 a piece. That's a lot. My Bolt, Turnigy Bolt, HV2S batteries are $6 a piece. That's phenomenal, you know. Even if I'm only getting 2.5 minutes per flight, beating on it like a freestyle, that's still far more flying time when you add up the time with each flight per battery I save. So, you know, that's what I'm looking at. That's why I went this route. 5-inch costs, you know, to buy 2 batteries is $100 almost. I mean, to get them shipped to the house, where, you know, with this thing, I can get 10 batteries, you know, or let's just say 5 batteries. I can get 5 batteries for $20, you know, roughly, you know, $25.
But buy the GMBs because they're worth it.
Right. And buy the GMBs because they're worth it. They are great batteries. They hold up. These hold up. I can vouch for them because I've been beating on them for the last month and a half straight hard. I bought 10 of them. They're holding up. They do well. They're not for spec racing though. They're high voltage batteries. So what they do is they kind of give me a little bit of 3S without running the high temp, because we found that out that with the 1107s and 1106s, less with the 1106s when you're running 3S and 4S. The 1106s can take 4S, and I run them that way. The 6800 kVs, not the 7600s, but those are some of the things that you got to get to. The HGLC stack works really well. Yeah. There's SpeedX ESCs work really well. I have that in. I even have the Luminaire 2x2s in one of my ships, and it works. They work really well. I mean, they can hold up 25 amps, and there's no issue of them popping or anything like that. So I would say, you know, just if you spend about $150, and really the Baby Hawk R is like right there. I mean, you spend $150 and you got something that you can go race 2S, 3S, or 4S, you know,
4S.
with you can chase them 5 inches with a Baby Hawk R on 4S, 6,500 kV, 6,000 kV. You could chase a 5-inch. I've done it. But like I said, the $150 Baby Hawk R, you know, it's hard to beat for what it is. I mean, but that's where you need to go. And I guarantee you guys are like, it opens up your yard. Like your yard is a whole nother place. 5-inch, you're like, oh God, I got to turn. Oh God, I got to turn. Now you're like, oh, I got to open it up. That's how it is for me.
Definitely. And just try it. Just try it. Have a little fun with it. Now, Greg, second question for you. Obviously, with this type of racing, you have a lot of already pre-built equipment. Anything that you can do to help out those guys? Do you have any plans? Are you planning on selling any of this, you know, obstacles that you've designed? What do you got for me? Come on, Greg.
Oh, well, no. I mean, for the backyard, you use whatever you have. For Drone Clan Wars, I mean, actually, what we're really, well, no.
See, I'm making you I'm making you say it.
Now, the backyard is great because guys like, I don't have any materials. We're like, you have a swing set? You know, right. Fly through the swing set. Trees. And the other thing was the backyard stuff, you know, you need about 8 things to fly through, and any 5-inch course too. There's 8 things. That's the magic number. So you bring stuff over, you know, and the beauty of this is, who cares? You just you change it. It's not like, ooh, we got to be such stuffed shirts. And like, guys, that's a backyard race. There's parity. The most important thing is in the course, it's parity. That's the fun part of it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, no, I don't have really anything other than, you know, have build your course so you fly over stuff. You know, build your course so you can go out safely. That's the main thing. Have a long pit entrance. Here's a secret, top secret. Who's ever hosting a backyard event, on the second race, don't tell anybody. On the second race, they have to fly the first heat because they got to get the food out. So they need to finish. So the next guy who's going, they have 30 minutes to go get the food and set it all up so we don't lose more time. There's your big secret of the day.
Big secret
Operations
of the day.
management.
All right, here we go. Last question of the day. Gregg, thank you so much for joining us. We always appreciate all of your knowledge. If somebody wants to contact you and get a little bit more information about either Drone Clan Wars or how you do your backyard racing, where can they get in touch with you?
Or scholastic racing. I mean, I know a lot about scholastic racing. I finally have a relationship with teachers. I have huge little aside here. A lot of guys are trying to do drones in the schools by doing a build program. And I will say, do not do that. Do not build it because you'll never fly it. You just don't have the time. It's impossible to do a club-based program. And don't think you're going to and we talked about this last time, don't think you're going to create a curriculum and knock somebody else's curriculum out. Good luck. Somebody brought that curriculum in who works in the school or who's really high up. You are not bumping them out. So you come in as a club program, and on the second year, like just as a side, Drone Clan Wars is doing something new for next year. It's not building drones. There's another competition. It's who can build the best obstacle. And the theme is hyperspace. So, our thing is there's the evil Imperium X, and we've got to take out the 5 evil bosses, and you got to build me a hyperspace portal. And it's do what you need to do. LED lights, programming, Arduino, if you want to do robotics. So that's the new challenge for next year. It may be worth half, it may be worth 30%, because that drone programs are an offshoot of Robotics Club. But I've got a school that's got 5,000 kids, and in their own home race, only 4 kids showed up. 4 out of 5,000 with a well-funded program. There's reasons for that. It wasn't because the club's failing or anything. It was just there was other things going on. Clubs aren't athletics. They're clubs. So the main message here is programming beta flight is not a transferable skill, and soldering is something that gets 10 cents an hour in China. However, programming algorithms, and by the way, programming LED strips is all array processing. That's a transferable skill. Figure out your Arduino set. By the way, that's already mainlined in the school. Somebody knows that. They do that already. So we are introducing a build program, but it's really just to wet their whistle. It's not to be anything, because we'll never fly. We only have 15 hours to teach a kid how to fly and compete. So that's that.
I do agree with you. I only have one school that I still continue to support the drone building program. It is really hard to keep up. I mean, it is a lot of work with not a lot of benefits. So completely agree with Gregg on that. I haven't gone the clone drone racing route type things because I just don't have the time, but I am looking forward to keeping up with him to see how far he fares with the scholastics of is it middle school, high school? Which one is it?
Oh, it's 5th grade through so anybody up to K through 12. And there's another aside. I'm finding out that there's no bottom end of skill level. I offer a drone camp. That's how we really fund the program. They pay me to come in and train them. If they go through my program, which is 4 hours, but specifically that first 4 hours, they waste no time in their subsequent meetings. They're not learning how to run a drone club. They're flying, and the right method to get stick time, because I'm stick time guy, right? And our new school that came aboard only had, drum roll, 5 times practice for 1 hour, and their kids are almost varsity, 5th graders. Amazing.
No,
they're kicking butts of all the high schoolers who've been doing it for years. Yep. Because they were trained the right way and they practiced the right way. Here's another thing interesting. High school, the clubs are social. They don't care about flying. They care about socializing. The younger you go, the more structure there is, and the more you can actually train them. And to be honest, as an organizer, I like working with the young kids better because they're funny and they're excitable. I mean, they are passionate. I've got 2 high school kids. How did school go today? Fine. The young kids are like, so I had a post meeting on how'd you guys do? What are you going to work on when you go back to your sessions? Okay, these are guys who have only flown for 5 hours. I really need to work on my altitude control. I think my entry was a little like, you guys are pros. You graduated. Here's the medal.
You know what? It's engagement, right? I have noticed this as well, is that, they're only allowed to do certain amount of things. And if flying drones, it happens to be one of them, they're probably going to stick to that one, and they're going to be really well engaged. And it's a lot of fun. The kids... Yeah. The middle school kids are kind of sweet. They'll grow on you. The high school ones, they're going through adolescence. I'm sorry. I don't need to deal with them.
I agree.
All right. You still haven't answered the question. Where can they actually get a hold of you?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. You can go to GoDroneX.com. You can Gregg Novosad at yahoo.com. But, the Facebook group of GoDroneX. We also have GoDroneX STEM. That's a smaller group for people. Like, there's teachers in there. There's students in there. And some adults who are into the program. Those are watch for the new website to be released in a few days. By the time this gets announced, it'll follow a few days. Much, much, much better. Especially if you want to see the whole world from the scholastic standpoint. A lot of content out there that's very useful.
All right. Cool. Sounds good. So definitely hit him up on Facebook. Gregg has always been a wealth of knowledge. He's the measuring stick. I keep teasing him about this, and he keeps not believing me, but I don't know why. But you can learn a lot from the man. Go.
Hey, I don't have a hole in my foot from a jar. I'm proud to say that.
Or a scar in your head because he hit himself with a drone.
I don't have a scar, but I did hit myself pretty good. So.
Oh no! I watched that on Facebook and I laughed. Yeah, I felt your pain.
I did post that video of me running into the back of my.
I'm a Facebook friend of yours. Is that on your site? Okay, I'm gonna go look at it.
Yeah, it was pretty whack. Like you know it from like 40 feet up. Like, oh, he's gonna hit himself. Like,
okay, I'm gonna go. That's what I'm gonna do tonight. That's my.
It was
you.
Yeah, he's about to whack.
I actually didn't know about it except like literally 3 friends messaged me, says, you got to go watch Elvin hit himself in the head. And I'm like, what?
Oh, this isn't the JARC. This is the drone?
This is the drone.
Yeah, that's okay, too. That's fun.
It was
fun for us.
Fun for us. All right, Gregg.
Okay, guys.
2 hours, 45 minutes, Gregg. You have not accomplished your goal. You have not of short podcasts. Gregg still has not done.
Baby down, man.
It was fun talking to you, Gregg. We appreciate it, and we are out for the week.
Thanks again, man.
Thanks, guys.